Welcome to Mother Tongues Festival. The Mother Tongues Festival is the largest festival celebrating linguistic diversity through the arts in Ireland. Our mission is to showcase Ireland's rich artistic and cultural tapestry through the use of the multiple languages spoken in the country. We want to enable people to connect to one another while engaging in diverse creative experiences. The festival shows that multilingualism is not a barrier, but a reason to get together and celebrate. We are really glad you can make it today. Our festival this year will be presented mostly online, but participation continues to be at the heart of our program. This year, we have engaged more than 40 artists from lots of different countries and different language backgrounds. And we want to bring to life a unique and diverse program of art workshops, school visits, film screenings, and lots of other events in more than 20 different languages. Don't forget to check our program on our website mothertonguesfestival.com.
Welcome everybody. Thanks for joining us today with our panel, Pushing Boundaries Together. Our panelists today are going to join us. Unfortunately, we have to be on Zoom. I'm going to be your host today. I am Romy.
Hi, my name is Kelvin Akpalu. At the moment, I am in Spain, Madrid. I'm an artist. I would say I'm a performing artist. I kind of like, as an artist, I do quite a lot, but mostly on the field of dance, movement, spoken word, poetry, a bit of theater. I facilitate, I perform. Any time that there's a stage, please call me. I just want to be there. That is kind of like, that is me. I'll bring myself and my group, and then we will come and then we will perform, or they will perform. Most of my work is basically around social justice, talking about inclusion, diversity, and basically anything that is related to tackling social issues. That is what my work is kind of like related. And yeah, I am really excited to be here today. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
I'll go next. I'm Kathy Coughlin. I'm an artist as well, and Project Potential Coordinator for Project Art Centre. And I'm a mum, and my arts practice kind of changes as the years go by. But I work across dance, theatre and film mostly, and I also work in a community context, I guess, or socially engaged context. And yeah, that's me. That's all I have to say.
Thank you. Thanks for joining us.
My name is Maca. I'm from Chile. I'm a theater maker, and which involves that I'm a playwright, director, and now I am in a process of researching. I am studying at Queen's. It is a practice-based research PhD. So I'm very focused on the collaborative practices in theater. And because of that, I was also focused on interculturalism in the arts, basically, not just in theater. I think it's in every way that we can coexist in the same space and in the same time as well.
Brilliant. Thanks. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, everyone. So my name is Claudia Lamantea. I'm from Italy, and I work mainly as a scenic artist for theater and film. I work a little bit in animation as well. I do a lot of different things. I'm also a prop maker, I'm a designer. I am developing my own puppetry company since 2016. And I really, really like puppetry. I find it quite a magical world, and I'm very interested in creating work for young audiences and for children. So I'm very interested in exploring imagination and how we can create different realities through our minds, our subconscious, and the dimension of dreams. So these are all the things that I'm kind of passionate about. And obviously, I really enjoy the collaborative aspects of the art. So anything that involves exchanging ideas and concepts with people, I'm all over it. And yeah, so basically I write stories as well. Yeah, at the moment I am doing some shadow puppetry. Yeah, so a bit of everything. I don't know. Yeah, that's it basically. Over. Thanks for having me. I'm very happy to be on this panel. Seriously, so if I can make a little difference, I'm very happy to do it with you. Thank you.
Thanks. Very nice. So a little different. I was just reading up today and someone said, enough talking, we have spoken too much, conversation is futile, so all of this is an exercise in nothing. And then I'm like, oh, I can see that. At the same time I'm like, but I feel there is a potential that is powerful and revolutionary in conversing, I guess, conversing in a different way and trying to find new ways to communicate. A question then out to anyone that would like to take it. Do you find that there is a relationship between how much you listen to someone and their accent and how they speak? Or have you felt that because of your accent, you were ever maybe not listened to the way you wanted to?
You threw a bomb there, is it? You just threw it there and you just run.
I guess maybe starting from the accent is a little bit like starting from the appearances, you know. Accent, once we've seen someone, is the first thing we hear, and there are some maybe preconceptions that we can have. I know myself, if someone speaks to me with a British accent, sometimes I find right away this, I don't know, as in like a sensation out of it, as if this person wants to be righter than me or something, I don't know. So, and at the same time I can feel that maybe not often the airspace in a meeting or in a room with a lot of people is the same when you're female or when you have an accent. And is any of you familiar with this feeling?
I think like always when you're speaking in a second language or in a different language that is not your native language, of course there is a quote of insecurity that you have like inside of you, you know. But the thing is like, well, personally I'm dyslexic, so it's worse. It's more difficult even. But in terms of accents, it's interesting because when I go to Germany, for instance, some friends that they speak in English, they cannot understand my how I am speaking English because of my Spanish accent and some pronunciation that I acquired from here, you know, that I got from here. So I think it's also something that is related to your new identity. I mean, like maybe, I don't know if that makes sense. Like when you assume that you will speak English, for instance, with a non-perfect accent, that will be part of your identity as well as an English speaker for at some point. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I hear that. I also am very aware that within Ireland or even within Dublin, there are different accents that can have, you know, a connotation to them. If someone's speaking with a certain cadence or a certain type of musicality to it, would be looked at and assumed to be from a specific area with specific backgrounds, etc. So I feel like it's something that it can be very personal and very connected to the identity, and at the same time very widespread. So everybody has an accent when they're talking to someone from someone else.
Yeah.
I will say that like I think I don't know if you mentioned this, but that is what I heard, that saying that maybe when somebody speak we, and because they're from different accents, do we kind of like listening to them? Or I think you mentioned something around the area. And for me, I would think that accent is important, but at the same time, it's all down to the environment that you are in, and also your own social perceptions, is included in this. Because, for example, if you put let's say Nelson Mandela in a room, he has a strong African accent, but because of your perception on Nelson Mandela to be a very important, intelligent person, every word that he's going to take, you're going to take it. But if you put somebody that is like maybe who's also similarly intelligent, and maybe from the traveler community, and you put them in, because of your perception on them, when they speak, you'll be like, oh, no, why do I have to listen? Because your perception is also included. So for me, accent is something that sometimes is the way it is incredible for me. I find it very interesting when I hear people speak accent, especially when you're trying, it's not your first language and you're going to try to speak other languages. Like, let's say, when I first came to Ireland, my English was, we call it broken English. So when I say, people used to laugh, and for me, it was interesting. Even I started laughing about it by myself. But then as time goes and I got into Dublin and using like, what's the story, lads? That kind of stuff. So I think is amazing when you're speaking, but at the same time, when it comes to not people listening to you, I think our social perception is the one that plays a huge role in that.
I think there is also kind of an element of self-acceptance, as in like, once you accept that this is not your first language, and once you accept that you're gonna make mistakes and that people are probably gonna laugh at you, and then you're just gonna laugh back, then you kind of free yourself from a lot of boundaries and limits that we put upon ourselves before even the other people do. So I think there is an element of that kind of, if we accept ourselves, because it took me a very long time to kind of decide, listen, I'm Italian and I live in Dublin, and that's it. So I can't change that, and I will never probably speak like a person from Dublin, and that's totally okay. I don't want to be something that I'm not. But you need to accept it yourself first, because otherwise you're gonna always sort of blame the others all your life. That's what I find, basically, like, for myself, really. Yeah.
Somebody who obviously does have English as their first language, I think somebody with an accent, I listen to them more, because I'm obviously trying to hear words clearly, and I'm trying, so it immediately draws my attention to listen to somebody with an accent, and I love the accents. Yeah, it attracts me to people, a different accent. So yeah.
Yeah, there is a component as well of being exotic, I think is a word that can be used as well, and have this added layer of interest. So someone just, it's almost like a different side of the same coin. You could be more interesting because of it, or less also because of it.
I think it's also,
very
sorry. I think it's also about the way, I mean, you're talking about making mistakes, but actually I think a different accent, or when English isn't your first language, you see different pathways in with the construction of words. That's really interesting. And just an interpretation of a language is really interesting, I think, as well. So yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Like one funny example that I would give when it comes to accent was when I think 2018, I was going to, I was coming from Reggio Calabria in Italy to Naples. And then I got there, but the advice I was told that when you get to Naples train station, be careful with your stuff. So I got there very early, and then I was going to get the ticket. And then I saw a guy standing behind me whilst I'm getting my ticket. So the guy was standing there looking at me. So straight away, a woman told me before I went to get my ticket that you are not from here because of my English, because of the way I was speaking. So straight away, I saw the guy behind me. I just went into my African accent, like, I don't know what I am doing. You know, I went straight away. And then because the guy is from Africa, he too looked at me. But I put on my African accent in a way of like, okay, bro, I am with you. We are the same. Not for them as the woman said, you are not from here, because of how I was speaking in the beginning. I was like, hello, I'm from Ireland, you know. But then when I saw the guy, I had to put on my African accent in a way of just to bring that unity back in case, you know. So accent in a way really bring people in, you know. And I find it, for example, I find French accent, beautiful accent. You know, I find it like when they go, je suis over my brothers, like for me, it's like, you know, so when a French person is speaking, I am always like, oh my God, keep on speaking, you know. So I always the accent in a way, you know, it plays like, as I said, the social perception plays a huge part because of maybe your connection to a certain area or to a certain group. Is the one that allow you to maybe listen to people very good or disregard people.
So I already feel and I have some perception of different faces are coming. I don't know if I'm understanding the facial expressions, you know, Zoom and everything. But let's bring this then to the theater. When we're talking about accent on a stage and the authenticity or lack of authenticity, and when we talk about how does it feel, maybe as an audience member or as a theater maker, to go and see someone, for example, pretending to be Irish on stage and, I don't know, dress green and saying fiddle diddle do, how would that compare with maybe seeing the Dolmio ad, which is a famous puppetry ads that used to be there with very strong Italian, I don't even know how to define it, depiction.
I think the woman had a unibrow or something.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it was a picture with like just a massive brow, and I was like, that's weird. Like assuming all Italian women. Yeah, that was funny, I thought.
Did you feel like that's a mirror? No.
I was thinking about the accents in theater, how different is when you come here, and if, for instance, in South America, the importance of accents on the stage is not so visible, or it doesn't conditionate the audience to create an image of a character, like, oh, this character is from this place, or this is the background of the character. But I was impressed when I arrived here that everything is about accents, you know, like you have this, there is not just an importance, it's like how it creates a framework for a character or for a production or something like that. But, and also for the auditions, like we need an actor with this kind of accent, or even for the CV of the actors, they must to put like how many accents they can do in English. And I was impressed, like how yeah, I was like impressed, it's so different, you know, like probably it's because of the industry, like it's very, I mean, the industry covers different countries that are English spoken countries. Yeah, I don't know, but for me it was like shocking.
There's nothing worse, as you were saying, than a bad accent. You know, there's literally like to sit in a theater space and listen to your accent get butchered is horrific. and cringy, and I think it kind of goes back to what Kelvin was saying about like all Irish and English accents are connected to social class at the end of the day, you know. So yeah, I think people taking on those accents need to either be extremely well prepared or from those places. Yeah, but it's a minefield, and like the idea of doing it badly is painful.
Yeah, I think it's something unique that about the accent, because if I can compare with languages, I could say that maybe it's easier to make a comparison between dialects, for instance, like with words or slang. Yeah. But with accent is something that is very, very, very focused on the way in which the actor can do it or he cannot.
And then it depends on the audience as well, or what we expect, because obviously the authenticity of a Cork accent versus the authenticity of a New York accent would be seen in a different light as the authenticity of, for example, a Spanish accent or a French accent. And it could be French from Toulouse or from Paris or from Normandy. I could maybe hear that, but someone else couldn't hear that. And someone, you know, at the same way, from New York, hearing me pretending to do a New York accent, it would be like, yeah, right, New York, where? You know, while maybe I'm pretty sure that a lot of people in New York, they speak like me, probably. But those are not the people that I meant to in this imagination exercise that I meant to be like. It is an interesting subject because it goes all ways, and there is a lot of possibility to, I guess, misrepresentation is a thing comes to mind.
Well, I think accents are also interpretation of the same language. So, and as you were saying before, Kathy, that obviously each person pick up a certain accent depending on what class they're from, but it's the same in Italy. Like, you know, I'm from Rome, and there are certain type of accent depending on what area you're from. So like we could really like narrow this so little that we could like even change the accent from one area of Dublin to another one, not even like country. So I think if we go that road, it's so limited, it's so narrow that like really we should do the opposite. I feel like that we are kind of, you know, going inward rather than outward, and that's not really useful, I think. I was thinking today, well, a couple of days ago, about last time when we had that conversation on how can we kind of open up and what it is that we want to do in terms of inclusion. And kind of we ended the conversation on the what it is to be Irish, and we have to define what being Irish is. And then I thought about the word define. So if you give a definition on something, you are already excluding something else. So defining is actually making the room more little. So I was thinking, I had this image of a box, right? So let's say that you have a box and you put a label on this box with chocolate, right? So everyone that has a piece of chocolate will, you know, put the chocolate in the box because it's written chocolate. But what if instead of chocolate, you put sweets on it? Like anyone that has like a piece of something that has a sweet taste will have the, you know, the instinct to put the thing in the box. So we are kind of opening up instead of defining what goes in the box. So I think by defining what's Irish, we're actually excluding and dividing and separating and saying, okay, this fits, this doesn't. And this goes back to our needs as human beings to belong, to feel like we are part of something, which is totally natural. But if we apply this to the arts, we're actually doing the opposite. So for me, because of the nature of the arts, which is always a collaborative effort and it always involves more than one person, why don't we say that being Irish means any work that is being done on Irish territory? And it doesn't matter if this work is done by an Italian person, a French, a person from Africa, from Chile, from Argentina. They are in Ireland, so they are responding to what's happening in Ireland and what the culture is, what the circumstances, what's the scenario. So like they are automatically doing some work that involves Ireland. So if we just say that anything that is produced or taught in Ireland is Irish, then we are kind of putting sweets on the box rather than chocolate. So anything can fit. So I thought about this image of the box because I think that, like, I hate the fact that we have to always define something. We have to define an accent. We have to define a person. We have to define a piece of work, what it is. Is it dance? It is film? It is theater? Well, what are we? Even like we find it so difficult to define ourselves because we are a lot of different things. And that's the beauty of it. If we become one thing, then we're excluding everything else. So yeah, that's my little rant there. For sure.
It's great. It was a great little rant. And I think that the idea of box in a world right now that over a year now has been literally putting us in boxes in videos, but making us two-dimensional in our connections with people. Like right now, I haven't met three-dimensionally most of you, both two of you actually, half, 50-50. So there is an important difference as well on the physicality of connection and how, you know, now we get to maybe have less conversation with people that are not in our circle, because why would we? And then the ones that we have, they have a lot of less information coming through, because I don't know how you walk, how you smell, how you know, do certain things that give us a lot of information. I would like to go back to the different pathways that were mentioned before. This is a nice sentence that someone mentioned before. And then I think it was actually Claudia, you were saying something about people laughing at you and you laughing with them, and then being kind of like less, you know, self-accepting and etc. I was wondering, how do we make these different pathways for the laughing at to become laughing with? How do we start laughing together rather than at different things? I have this way of seeing everything connected and saying it did came from the idea of accent, and I wonder if as well within accent in the theater or within diversity in the theater as well, there is a lot of probably there is a very specific and clear difference to me between I'm laughing at someone and I'm laughing with someone. And at the same time, I wonder, how do we create this? That's fine.
I have maybe something that could, an example, like the typical, like universal examples that, the typical thing like Peter Brook, when he staged like the Tempest and in France, and he decided to cast an actor who has a Mali accent to be Prospero, the protagonist. So that was creating like the image that was like something political behind to the play, because of the accent of that character will involve something different that all the French society used to be looking for.
And what from your question, what I got from it, what I get from it is like how a person goes from somebody laughing at them to become like laughing together. How do you create that in a theater, in a theatrical aspect? For me, what I see is three ways of doing that. One, you need to have a strong mindset. Like you yourself in the society-wise, because if somebody's laughing at you based on your accent, it also connects with your culture, connects with your ethnicity, the group that you're coming from. So when they're laughing at you, they're not just laughing at you personally, they're also in a way laughing at your culture, they're laughing at your ethnicity. So what you need to do is, in able to laugh with them, you need to have a very strong mindset. The second thing which comes into is like, when you bring it into theater, it's like, okay, I want to make a statement here. So you laughing with them, you're also making a statement. Like, do you know what? Actually, do you know what? It's actually funny. So it's a statement. So when the people are laughing at you, you're making it, wait, do you know what? Yeah, it is funny. Let me embrace, you embracing it. It's not like, keep on laughing at me. You're embracing it in a way to, third aspect, educate, you know. And for me, this is what I see. That's why you can bring it into theater. So into theater, for example, when somebody can come in with a very strong, I don't know, actually, let me use the example of this person. I don't know if you've all seen Fabudi. Fabudi is a comedian, and he calls himself the Black Paddy, you know, and he put up a very, anytime he's on camera, he's always speaking a very strong Irish accent, you know. So, and he's worldwide. When people from different culture, when they see him, they are laughing at him, but they are also, it's not like they're laughing at him, they're laughing at even Irish people are laughing at an African guy doing Irish accent. They don't take it as anybody, but they take it in a very positive way. And Prabhudeep too is also, for me, what I see is he's educating. He's kind of like doing in a way of like inclusion, telling people that, you know what, I'm with you, I'm part of you, I'm Irish, you know, taking and accepting that kind of like a culture. So for me, in a way to do that, to laugh with people that's laughing at your accent in a theatrical way, you have to play something in, put it in a performance way of accepting it and taking it and let the people see that, you know what, yes, actually, you know what, let's laugh together about this issue. So it's about, for me, strong mindset, making a statement, you laughing is a statement, and also it's also a form of education. That is why I go from your question.
Wow, thank you. That was a very big overachievement for my question. I didn't expect this. I feel like you gave me the solution for everything. That's it. That's it. Education. I have my 3 points. We're gonna fix it. We're gonna fix everything now. I guess we were talking about pushing boundaries. That's our title, you know, and having these limits. And probably I find within myself, accent is one of them. And I totally understand and support the idea of like the self-acceptance and knowing. Now, I used to have parents of accents. So my parents moved from a country to the other and they had an accent. And I used to be terrible to them as a child because I didn't make the same mistakes they made. And I used to laugh at them so bad and really so like now I'm paying for that. For years of that abuse towards my parents. But I guess that also makes me understand that there is something very childish and very kind of like, like giddy on someone making a mistake in the way they speak. And it could be an accent, or it could be a lisp, or it could be any other thing, you know, because we communicate through this medium and it's like, what did you say? What? And that's, I guess that misunderstanding can also be translated to movement sometimes, you know, like I move a lot. We're like, I had a big fight with my partner once because in the shop, now Claudia is gonna understand me, hopefully. He was talking to someone far away in Lidl, and I was like, what are you doing? That person didn't have a mask. We had to go. I was holding a heavy thing, and I do this from afar. Very, very big fight. How dare you do this? But this is, you know, this is like, this is very normal. This is what are you doing? Let's go, you know, like all this movement. But for someone else can be like, you did that gesture in front of people is so rude. Is it rude?
I'm not entirely sure what it means, to be honest. You know,
It could be anything.
something really,
Really.
or it could mean, I don't know, like, I
What
guess.
does it make you feel? If I tell you, Kadi, what do you feel?
Yeah, well, I guess I owe you something, maybe. Yeah.
It's what are you doing? What are you doing? This is like typical what, no?
But for me, I had a similar experience actually when I was working in a hotel, and I was kind of clearing a table, and and I used to do gesture to communicate with my colleagues, because most of them were Italian. So I would do like are they gone, so I can clear the table. And then I forgot I was working with, you know, Irish people or other nationalities, so I would be like, and people would be like, what are you doing, what are you saying? And for me it was fun, it was kind of normal that this means are they gone, you know. So there was a moment of whatever, lost, everyone was lost. But I think that's kind of beautiful also, like that. I don't know, I don't see anything wrong with it, or, you know, I don't think anyone should kind of, I don't know, see it as a threat or some sort of rudeness. I don't know. I think it's kind of part of the culture, or I really don't know. I never thought about it in a way that is sort of limiting, you know. But I know that sometimes people can comment on it, but I don't really care, honestly. Like I kind of like it. I think it makes you sort of unique, and, you know, and kind of gives more passion to what you're saying, or not. But I also really like the fact that sometimes maybe other cultures don't use their hands at all, and I find that beautiful as well. So I think it all comes back to how open and how accepting we are in general in life, except like not just for the arts, but like in your approach to any other human being, I think. So yeah.
Yeah. For me, I love movement. I love expressions. Is for me is the only language that is understood by everybody, every human being. Because without text, if you take text out of the context, like words, I would say people, we can actually also live without like, you know, and just only communicating by movement. Because we're born as children, I think we all grew up with kind of like body language, kind of like in a way, you know, because in an African home, if you're doing something wrong and your mom like, you know, straight away, you know that, okay, you have to stop, you know. And I think it's in every home. And I think Claudia, one thing that you said that is kind of like sums everything up, is just the culture. So somebody will feel not sure, or maybe might take maybe your movement a bit in a different way based on the fact that they don't know your culture, and they might not understand what these movements kind of like works. And I think that is when theater, I think we need to use this a lot more, you know, because when we're in theater, I see that most of the time in theater, about 60% of most of the performances is text dominant. You know, it's hardly that you see a whole theater piece is all movement and you can still understand what is happening. And so for me, I feel like sometimes the text really strips a lot away from how we communicate and how we also interact with the audience. So if we are able to, I did like with this question, if we actually as artists right now, if we say, okay, our next project is all going to be about movement, and let's see how the audience will relate. So if we do this, and then or the audience like with this and like this, and the audience in the way will start to think, okay, what do they mean? Oh, maybe they're angry. Then the communication starts. Like in Spain here, I created a piece, 45 minutes piece called Black and White, and it's totally like 1 hour piece, but in 45 minutes of it is no text, no nothing, and it's about the stories about Africa and all that kind of stuff. And one of the best comments I've ever had in my, like, since I came here, I've only been here 1 year, a woman, a Spanish woman, saying it was the best piece she has ever seen, you know. So for me, that really touched me because there was no text and they still understood. So I think that is what maybe something that artists, we need to bring into our pieces more and move away the text if we really want to create a diversity and then kind of like universal understanding in theater.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that, Kelvin, because I'm kind of very interested in everything that has nothing to do with words and has nothing to do with with text. So like I work a lot with puppets, and all my puppets they actually don't talk, so there is never dialogue, and everything is told through visuals. And like I'm working at the moment also on a movement piece as well, and it's just movement and music. There is no text. And so I'm very interested in all of this because I think it kind of connects to a deeper knowledge of ourselves, and a sort of a more instinctual and a more kind of raw, authentic self that is kind of has stripped all the barriers that text can kind of create in their understanding, and also language barriers, because obviously if you are doing a piece and the piece is in English, and then you wanna sell it or you wanna show it somewhere else, obviously English most of the countries understand it, but like, why don't you kind of get the language away to actually include more? So at the moment I'm doing like a piece, is a shadow puppet piece, and is actually has sign language, which I found extremely beautiful. And it's like, actually, I didn't know a lot about it. I didn't know like the history. I didn't know how it started, but somehow it feels like it's kind of the next step for us as a community, kind of embrace so many other forms of communication that we didn't even think about. So in this piece, basically, people lose their voices in a way. So they are sort of forced to communicate in different ways. And if we think about ways that we would communicate if we didn't have a voice, it would be obviously our body, because it's such a natural reaction. So I totally agree with you saying that I think artists, like, we should do more variety of performances that don't include always people talking or people over explaining things, because it's nice when an audience can feel rather than being told what's happening, you know? So I'm very interested in that. It's like kind of tickling a little bit more people's imagination and kind of not giving them all the answers, but kind of, you know, making them do a little bit of work in a way. But, you know, and in that way you can kind of include them, because each person is going to take something different out of the performance you created. So there is never going to be someone that takes the same. Like I did a piece, I did a shadow, I do a lot of shadow puppetry, I really like it. And I did a piece in Galway, and it was for kids. And it was so funny because kids really like react to things in a totally weird way. So we had like tons of kind of cool puppets, and then they came behind the scenes, and we were asking, what was your favorite puppet? And one of them, she pointed at a puppet that was a toilet, and she was like, that was my favorite. And I was like, what? You had like any type of puppet, like, you know, fish and, you know, trees, and she pointed at a toilet. And I was like, I don't know what this kid saw in the toilet, but she definitely saw something. Yeah. So I think if we because I think Irish theater is very much text-based, because it's, you know, based on literature, which is beautiful as well. But it would be cool to kind of interpret them in a way that is not so obvious, is not so explained all the time, it's not so it's more like up for interpretations, really, I think.
Yeah, like I want to add something very quick to that, because in general, when we look at art, for me, I see art as a brilliant way to include every single person, and that's what artists we try to do, that show the world, or try to bring people into theater, different cultures, but once you bring text, for me, into theater, especially a lot of text into theater, you exclude majority. You know, if somebody that is a deaf, that can't hear, you exclude them out of it also. You know, and for me, that is something that most of the time artists, we seems to forget that our work that we claim to be artists, and we claim to kind of like wants to include, but most majority of our work exclude a specific people all the time. And it's something that we need to be kind of like very wary of and think of that, because and also one thing that I also find is so in how text plays is when you put text also into a piece, you don't just you might think that you are kind of like, oh, as Claudia said, you're explaining, they will understand, they will do this, they will do this, they will do this. Another thing that you're also doing with audience that can hear is that you're giving them much more to criticize, you know, for me. And I understand about criticizing is good, but I mean, you're giving them this opportunity that, okay, because if somebody comes in and we're talking about accent, and somebody has to put on a British accent, for you, you like it, but for a British person who can come and go, oh my God, I didn't like this play, the way that the actor was even speaking the British accent, it was not really good. I didn't, and so for me, it limits also you, the artist, your work, you know? So I really feel that sometimes as artists, we should really be wary of that and really think of movement a lot rather than text-based, because we exclude deaf, we exclude even people that language is not even their first language. And also I want to ask a general question here, which comes in is, when we were talking about accent, for me, what I was hearing a lot of people were saying that, oh, when we speak the English, my British accent or my Irish accent, we've put English as the main language in the center. And I wanted to ask if Italian, if you're speaking, do you recognize it, if Italian person is trying to speak Spanish? Is it also, you know, because sometimes when you talk about, oh, they're speaking different accent, for me, straight away, it comes with English is the main language in the center. I want to know, in other countries that you are in, is that the same mindset of the people with English being the main accent in the center? Or when you talk about accent, maybe speaking other people's languages and accent, you're talking about other people's languages? Because I was hearing English, only English, like in the center, and you changing your accent to talk like that language. So this is my question. Sorry, no more talking.
I think it's a very important thing that you notice there. Obviously, we are speaking in English and we are in a country that is English speaking, but we definitely have different experiences of other languages and how those languages are treated in other contexts. I think when it comes to Spain or South America, obviously, like the Spanish language is spoken in so many parts of the world, just like English, and it's very different depending where you are. But I feel like even recently, an Italian actor, Raul Bova, was in a South American show speaking Spanish with a very strong Italian accent, and he was the Italian baddie, kidnapping, whatever. And I felt, you know, fair play to him speaking Spanish. You know, I wasn't, you know, oh my God, I can't believe they hired him that doesn't speak Spanish well. No, I mean, they went and hired an Italian actor, and obviously, in the speaking of Spanish, he will have an accent, and it made it all the more authentic for me in that context. And I think that sometimes even in movies, people don't make that effort. And I say, okay, right now I can't go and get someone and hire someone from such and such place. But then if I turn around, within Ireland, there will be a lot of people. So I don't need Raul Bova. I can ask Claudia if she knows some Italian actors, if I need someone. And then I could, you know, even make that Italian person speak a third language. And I think, you know, obviously we're talking about text as a bit of an evil there. I'm gonna talk about text in a bit of a good way. I think that we can just not just get rid of text totally and forever and in every shape and form and language. I believe that there is scope to play with intertextual text and language, and as a polyglot myself, you know, the more languages the better, and sometimes with different languages I can hear and see Macarena is happy about this. She wants someone to, you go, take it away, Maca. Defend text. What
No,
can we do?
yeah, it's just like we couldn't have just productions without text or without words. Like, I mean, like
No, of course.
we should like expand the shows, probably the formats and so on. But I think, yeah, you're right, definitely, because I think in this part of the world has a very text-based tradition, and a very strong one. You have Shakespeare, and in Ireland, a very important and famous poetry as well. But the thing is, I'm more concerned about translations. Like, maybe another way to open the shows for the community, and to open interculturalism to Irish audiences, is staging more translated text who are from different countries, and not just from Europe, you know, because that situation, you can see that in London or in different cities in the UK. But maybe in Ireland, what is needed is to create more programs in terms to help translators, and staging more theater that is from a different culture background. And also because then I could also talk about the topic that when you're over explaining something to the audience, because it depends on the text and it depends on the structure. A text written in Spanish, for instance, will have a different structure to introduce the characters, to introduce the conflicts, and to go through the story. That is completely different. And also there are so many Irish authors and playwrights that they do not use the same conventions that before. I think there is also a problem with how those texts are directed as well. If I will direct, I don't know, like Three Sisters by Chekhov, I will respect the text, but I will try to do something in terms of catch or reach the attention of the audience, you know? Like, but of course, I totally agree with you in terms of we should focus a little more on the physicality of actors, especially because in the different countries, the actors' trainings are very, very physical, and that helps them to create their own presence on the stage, instead of like acting with this part of the body. That is something that I've seen several times here, you know, but just that.
I think there's just such a tradition of neglecting the body, and of fear around the body. And I would totally agree with Kelvin in terms of trying to produce more work that's not necessarily dance, but maybe physical theater, or, you know, I think like one of the reasons I became an artist is because I don't really like to speak that much, you know, and I think like as artists, we obviously have a facility to express ourselves in different ways, and to not have to use words so much. I have found I'm placing more words into my work, but it doesn't necessarily serve the work. I don't know. I think that's just a frustration about trying to over-explain, possibly. But there's kind of pockets of experimental work, but it never reaches a sort of mainstream audience. You know, it's again like back to that traditional idea of what an Irish theatre experience should be. And I hope that changes over time. And I think that kind of comes back to all your funding streams and all your, you know, the traditional gatekeepers, you know.
I want to ask something to like kind of everyone. And Kathy, sorry that we always talk about the fact that we're not, the English is not our first language. I don't know if you speak any other language. Do you?
No, I don't. I find languages extremely difficult.
But
dyslexia.
All right. My question would be, if you guys feel that you think differently when you think in a different language, as in that if the language that you're speaking affects somehow how you think and how you express your thoughts, because in my case, I think that because Italian is such a I think in my experience, I find it's a little bit more complex in terms of structure. So like automatically when I speak in Italian, my thinking flow is more complex, as in I feel like that I can express more complex things or concepts, whether in English, because for me it's a more basic kind of structure that I feel that I'm much more that I'm much clearer, and I think more in a schematic way. So I think I wanted to ask you if it's the same experience for you guys, if you find that switching to other languages kind of affects the way you think and you are really like.
Especially in writing, like
Yeah.
I realize like even speaking English, it's like you need to think before and organize the sentence and then you speak, you know, otherwise it don't make sense for people who are listening you. But in writing, it's so I could note the difference, because after 1 year just writing in English for the university, I come back to writing in Spanish, and it was terrible. Like I sent I need help actually in terms of how for it was for a theater play, you know, it wasn't for a university, neither for academic purposes. So I asked help to an Argentinian playwright. Otherwise I couldn't do it. And he explained me like, yes, because your brain now as a playwright is working with the structure of English, but you need to come back to work to write as we used to do it in South America. And that was about hearing expressions and something like that, because that is a way that you can achieve that, you know, when you're writing characters. But yeah, it was very frustrating at the same time, because I was like, I'm not hearing enough Spanish, so I cannot write characters in Spanish. But I'm just like, that's weird. But I did it at the end. Yeah, it took me a lot of time actually.
To answer your question, I think it's all down to that. That comes in with the title of like this festival, like mother tongue. You know, I think in your mother tongue you can express more. You can think as creative and as deep as possible that you want to. But when it comes to other language, because sometimes it's not your mother tongue, that is where the difficulty comes in. Even if, for example, you might have learned it as much as possible, there is, you know, as a mother tongue language, you have the slangs, you have it's, you know, there's different ways you can express yourself because you feel comfortable in that word. Like I am in Spain right now and I am learning the Spanish, and it is so difficult for me to express myself. Like my favorite words that I use a lot is like necesito, quiero. You know, I tried as Macarena, you said, for me, I do the same thing. I try to find the verbs and then put it together and then try to, and sometimes you really want to express yourself within the group and tell them what you really want to say, but you can't. You know, maybe if it was in my mother tongue, or maybe I have lived in the culture for much longer to learn the culture, to learn the flow, to learn the slang, to learn the thing, it'll be much easier. So I think if you're born with a language and that is something that you've grown up with, you are much naturally easy to express it. And when it comes to the ones that you are learning it, the crazy thing is that one, when you learn it and you leave it for like maybe 1 year, it's difficult sometimes to also come back in because you lose it, you know. So I think they all plays a bigger role in that. The language you're born is what you are kind of like originally comfortable with. So
I'll have to disagree with you, Calvin. Sorry. I know, I totally hear you. I understand how that works when you have a mother tongue. Unfortunately, when you have two, your brain starts working in totally different ways. So when there is a dichotomy already in the brain, and I learned two languages as a baby. which were also quite similar between them, but at the same time quite different. And coming to terms with that similarity and difference, I think it had an impact as well on how I see the world in a certain shape or form. And today, I learned that later on other languages, and I feel like there are some concepts that I can express way better in English, just because, you know, I studied here theater, and there are some technical aspect of, you know, a type of light or whatever I may need that obviously will come in English. But I also can totally feel and understand the surreal intertextuality that can go when you go in between different languages, or just body language being one of them, you know, and even like the sound that words can make. I think theater is more like a dream than like a real life. And I can say that the language that I hear when I dream, it's something else. It's Esperanto. It's Romi's version of an Esperanto. So then I don't know. I guess I can see something, you know, I feel something, I hear something when there is this connection. And obviously I'm part of Mother Tongues Festival, and I love, you know, the idea you have this mother tongue, but I don't think it makes you any less able to express yourself in another language. I actually, probably because of the wealth of knowledge of this previous language, you, like Katy was saying earlier, you know, you can find different pathways to express yourself and get to another type of something.
Like I talk about it, like, for example, if we're talking about expression, is different from expressing yourself, is different from kind of like mother tongue itself, like your language, you know. So I can express myself, I can use another language, but as I might not be speaking it right, but my expressions or my movement in all of them, expression comes with a lot of other languages. So for me, for example, the reason why I said about you feel comfortable is that my girlfriend speaks Spanish, incredible at Spanish. Like, that's her mother tongue. Mine is an African one, but I came to Ireland at the age of 13, and then I've been speaking English since. So English, like, I have two accents, you know, but English is something that I am so comfortable. It feels like my mother tongue. It's like something that I'm so comfortable with as a child. I've lived with. And so sometimes we have, like, my girlfriend speaks English, you know, also. But the thing is, sometimes we're talking and she said, Kelvin, let's speak Spanish. Try learning Spanish because I want to express myself. She can speak the language and we can have a deep conversation in English, but it gets to a certain point, she can't really express what she really wants to say. She has to go back to the mother tongue, the language that she already knew as a child, and she's more comfortable with. You know, I think, and that is something that for me, I appreciate about mother tongue, because for me, when I go to Ghana, because I've not spoken my mother African traditional mother tongue, the English mix up, and that comes in. But once I start, maybe after a week or two, it's like I'm back in that comfort zone now. Now I can speak that language. So this is why I am talking about that. Naturally, the language that you were born with, because you know the expression, you know even the sound of it, you know the sound. Like, for example, when in Ghana, when you go to, and there is a specific tribe where they call them the Fulanis, and the Fulanis, when they are calling the cows, they do, you know. So maybe somebody will come to Ghana and learn the African language, but they don't even know the sounds, what that means. But for me, because I was born there, I'm confident, I know even the sound of those words. And that was what I mean by that. But yes, and you can, like, I totally agree with you, Romy, that you can express yourself in all the languages. But when it comes to maybe there are some situations where if you really want to say something and you can't, you know, and you have to go on that language that maybe you were born with, and then just get it out there. And there is a piece I did in Ireland called Calling Back History Africa. And the incredible thing that we did was that it was totally movement, but at the end, we were talking about, I made one of the dancers speak. And this was the first time that we used text in that. And when he was speaking in his mother tongue, in South Sudanese language. And you could see the way that he was expressing, and the audience were like, what is he saying? What is he? We don't understand. But then they also could feel his energy coming with it. I felt like if he was to say it in English, that might not hit the same impact as that. So that is what I talk about. What is what I mean by when it comes to, because languages that you're born with, your mother tongue, you can express yourself, or you can say some things in explain yourself in a much deeper way or something. But I totally agree with what you said.
I totally agree with you as well. I agree with you as well as disagree. I love this. I'm weary of the time, and I know that there is this big iceberg that we're climbing, and we need to get somewhere. But there's something I want to explore with you before, I threw the bomb of the accent at the beginning. But it is a mother tongues festival, so we want to speak about tongues and languages and things. But also, what about collaborative practice? We have an expert here. We have people that we talked about before, the difficulties that could be there. And I feel like, even if maybe talking about collaborative practice is not going to make it happen and make it better, but is there something that either you've thought last time that we met today, or something else, even in the way that we have collaborated to making this panel and talking together, that you feel like sharing?
I think the only way that could be universal in terms of collaborative practices is empathy. Like you can have different languages, you can have different cultural backgrounds, you can have difficult audiences as well, but if you don't create, or you don't have empathy for the other human being who is sharing the rehearsal space with you, it is not possible. And I think beyond that, something that is always I'm concerning on is about humor. When you're in a collaborative practice, and how can you accept, how can you avoid, or how can you create humor with a intercultural group of practitioners, Because humor is also culturally conditioned, like is influenced as well. So yeah, just that.
I think time and duration as well in terms of collaboration. Like even if you think about like the last time we did this and we kind of came together and there was maybe a bit of holding back, or I think over time to just be in the same space creates a sense of empathy, and I think humor, as you said, is like it's almost the most important thing that space, because to be able to laugh at yourself, to be able to it's just such a human thing, to be able to relax enough to laugh with somebody. Yeah.
And what happens when the humor is different? When something I find hilarious, which happens most of the time, I find the most terrible things hilarious. Actually, maybe it can be even offensive for someone else. How do we work through that?
But that happens in every single situation. I don't think that it has anything necessarily to do with culture. It's probably personality types, or I mean, I guess there are things within intercultural relationships that the other person just doesn't get, but I think if you've kind of put yourself in that space, you'll try at least. But you can be working alongside somebody for a long time and just not share their sense of humor. So I don't think it necessarily has anything to do with that.
I do feel like, sorry.
Okay, I want to say something very add something to that. I think it's also down to connection and understanding. So like maybe you might find something funny and that person might not, but how do you work with that is the connection between you and the person. So if you have a strong, like before you collaborate with somebody, I don't just go and say, oh, Macarena, Kelvin, let's work together without having a kind of like a background connection between us. So that connection creates understanding between us, and I will end up knowing what are the things that maybe Macarena finds funny and what are the things that they don't find funny. So you become whilst you were in the theatrical space, in the space of rehearsal, you also have the sense of awareness among each other. So for me, maybe this might find something funny, and I know that, okay, we are working on a certain piece. I am not going to laugh, because if I laugh and it affects Macarena, then we are going to spend much longer time to get the piece together, or the piece might end up not even working. So I think it's that connection, and then connection creating understanding, you will be able to work with that kind of like process.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm kind of like weary when you talk about the connection, though, as in like, how do we make sure that we keep creating new connection and get enriched and share with more and more practitioners, rather than that maybe get stuck, because now I've done this with you for now, I only want to work with you for the rest of my life because I'm comfortable, you know, my terrible humor, so that's it, you're condemned to me, I'm not going to do anything else with anybody else. I would like to, probably you wouldn't, but realistically, I also would like to do the same and do more and do different things with a lot of different people. So I guess, how do we create connections even with someone that we don't have that much time with then? Is it possible?
I think I return to what Kathy said before about time. And I think one key aspect that you can do in order to help actors, at least actors, because dancers is different, to create connection between them is through the training, the psychophysical training, because all of them are exposed to the same exigence, and at the same time they create like they unify the group. I mean, and even if they can be later against to the director, but at least the group is already attached. So then you can trust that the play will happen, even if they don't like you as a director or whatever, you know, because they need the other one in order to achieve the thing. So they can realize that during the training process, but at the same time, we need time to do that. We cannot do that in a process of 2 weeks of staging, you know, like if you have just like 2 weeks or 10 days for your premiere and you are staging a text for that will be 1 hour on the stage, you don't have time to train your actors. So you don't have time to create the group, or you don't have time to create the confidence between them. So
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I do think as well that there is a predilection for competition over collaboration when it comes to the arts, and in particular theater, and the idea that there is only a few apples in a few trees that can be grabbed, while, you know, instead of maybe putting more seeds together, let's make more trees. Sorry about this metaphor, but you know, I'm artistic, so I come up with metaphors all the time. Well, how, you know, I feel this, and you know, I want to ask you, how do we make it better together? Because this is what we're doing. We're pushing boundaries, we're making things. So together, what can we do to be less competitive and more collaborative? I tell you what I started doing, which is really bad, you know. I discovered that I do suffer as well from this thing called social media jealousy. You know, if someone has something amazing on social media and they posted their latest fantastic endeavor, and the first reaction, you look at it and you're like, dang, why them? I could have done something good, isn't it? Yeah, let's be honest, it's not like first you see it's a friend and you'll be like, and then I take that moment and I take the power of my finger and go like, I'm happy for them. and I comment because I know it's good for them. And I put clap, 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 and then I go send because I'm like, I'm gonna be. This is all I can do right now from behind the screen, you know, because clap, clap, clap is important, and it kind of like, but addressing that feeling and doing something like, no, no, you deserve this. This is great, well done, you know. This is something. Do you feel something similar? Do you do something? Do you have any ideas on this?
I think like it's such a sort of tenuous space, the arts world, like that when you do find people that you work well with and you connect with and you have that second an unspoken connection where they understand your process, that they understand what you're trying to do, you don't have to explain every single step, that does become like, it is really comforting to know that you can have that ongoingly. But then you end up creating the same work over and over again, you know, and you see that all the time in theater companies or in collaborations where it's just that same piece of work over and over again. So I guess, yeah, I mean, and I don't know how you motivate somebody out of that space if they continue to be facilitated in making the same work over and over again. But yeah, but I'm from my perspective, I've always wanted to kind of shift things forward, because I think, you know, you don't get anything out of that kind of repetitious work. You know, I think it's always been a priority of mine to make work with new people, because it feeds you more, you know, it grows a different perspective in each piece of work that you make.
And for me to be able to move away from that, as you're talking about, like that competitive kind of like thing away, you need to first, like, one thing I would say is every artist, no matter how you are competitive. You have this competitive thing inside you, and that is something that is not bad. It's good, because it makes you, in a way, wants to improve your work all the time. You're not comfortable by you watching somebody else who go, okay, I think if that person, you taking it, you need to take it as a way of motivation, not kind of like as against. That is something that you need to, and then the second thing, I think the way to have a collaboration and not have a competitiveness, for me, it all starts with the word, the F word, funding. Yeah. The money, once money comes into something, everybody plays the card in a different way. It's no more collaboration. It's about who gets the money first. And for me,
Yeah,
this is this is the problem.
Symposium.
This is the problem, because in that sense, because some people then goes into, okay, I need to write the most incredible and application, and you, by this whole thing, you want to get, because you want to get that funding, and they don't give the funding to another person. And that is that whole competitiveness kind of like all start. And so when you see another theater company has done this beautiful production, you think that, oh my God, these people are definitely next year are going to get it. And because of what they bring. So if we are able to take that, kind of like not focus much on the money and actually focus more on the artworks, then we can do that. And for me, one of the best ways we can do that, for example, in Ireland, is I saw something here in Spain, and for me, it's super incredible. Most of the funding here, like for example, they're big theater companies, some of the big ones that people go and watch and everything. So if you're a local artist that has maybe done a piece, and you have been doing it in small undergrounds and people are talking more about it, when a big theater company hear it, they want to have you there. You know, so for me, it's nice, because it's not about your money, that it's not about maybe money that will push you there. It's the word of mouth. So that means it's your work, you know. So that means if artists wants to do good work, And by doing good work, they want to collaborate with other artists to be able to have that quality of a work that can push all of us up, rather than maybe applying for something huge money and then getting. So if you're able to do that for me, I think, or take that money out of there, like 50% of the funding the government gives, I may be wrong now, but before, what I knew before was 50% of the funding was going to the Irish National Theatre, you know, and they are doing like their own, they could do their own theater stuff, and then disregarding maybe the local artists, us, who are also doing something for the community. But if they decided, you know what, this money that we are getting, let us use some of them also, actually bring these artists, not just only focus on our work, bring these artists up. It's a collaboration from smaller to big, and then it expands, and then it teaches the practice of collaboration. But yeah, as long as the funding plays a big role in it, it's the competition kind of like still goes on in a way. That's what I always say, I hope.
I think it's also related to the concept of industry, you know, like when artists want to be part of the industry, want to be part of the business, because it's something real, you know, like people needs to have some stability as well to live. But I think it should exist a parallel model of finding money to create art that is not just like through the funding of the government or something like that, like as you said, Kelvin. But I don't have any answer related to that. Like I just could say about some things that could inspire, like for instance in Argentina they used to have like the cooperativas, like the co-op. How can you say that?
Co-op.
The co-op, you know, it could exist something like that where artists could create like a collaboration and helping to fund each other and together, and also to create more audiences. I think there is also another model in Chile that they create a thing called audience school. In English, it's something like that. So it is because people are not going to the theater, neither to dance shows. So then they create like this kind of a group that they create discussion between spectators in order to see how are the interests, and then they can also share like some videos, or they can give some tickets, free tickets and so on. So you are trying to build like conversation, discussion related to the arts. So yeah, I think it's how can you bring the arts and audiences together in some way. I don't know.
I think things have become much more
Absolutely.
conservative in Ireland since we, like, there's a lack of space for rehearsal, there's a lack of space for performance. It's like excruciatingly expensive to do anything off your own back. So, you know, without those funding streams, it becomes just really, really difficult to function, because you have to, you know, you need then a full-time job, or you need, you know, it's like it's all of the systems around being an artist that create those barriers as well. You know, it's a socioeconomic thing, and then it's insurance, and it's, you know, it's all of these like things that are just making things like a co-op, or, you know, grassroots kind of organizations, which is, you know, you need those things to exist in a community for there to be radical change, and for there to be, you know, that momentum to shift things forward. And I think, you know, over the last 20 years, Ireland has just gotten more and more difficult to do anything radical in, because of the financial barriers, you know.
And
But
they
then,
use
Kathy, I think when you understand what is the situation, what is the conflict, the problem, it is where you also understand that you need a change of the whole paradigm. For instance, like I cannot like make a comparison of the situation in Ireland and in Chile, but I can mention something like during the dictatorship, the artists decided to play outside on the streets, you know, because there were no place to rehearse, there were no open theaters and so on. But you cannot compare that in Ireland because the weather is not good.
Yeah.
You know? But
Yeah.
on the other hand, it will appear some ways to react to the problems, but the only way to achieve that change is like the communication between artists. If that is not, there is not a space to do that,
Yeah,
nothing will happen.
well, you know, I do think pockets of that come out, and I think social media over the next few years will play a huge part in creating those kind of groups. And you know, people, you know, like even in the last few years, there's been squats built up around Dublin that wouldn't, you know, haven't been there since the 70s, you know, that kind of thing. So I think, you know, there is room for those kind of grassroots movements to happen now, because there's no choice as well, you know, there really isn't. And I think they will. And also we almost have these two parallel cultures happening at the same time. You have all of these artists who exist completely outside the art structure and are able to move ahead with their practice and with what they're doing online, and they're being seen, and they're, you know, they're getting respect for that work, but they're still not making it into the traditional spaces. So I wonder, will this outside force just take over, you know?
But I think that, oh, sorry, Calvin, you can go.
No, Claudia, you go. I have talked a lot, so you
Okay,
go.
thank you. But I think also a lot of it is down to like, do you remember our first meeting we talked about tick boxing, right?
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a lot down to that. So if instead of trying to fit things in boxes again and funding things because they belong to a certain category, like we just focus on the quality of work. So let's say we have 20 projects and they all go for fun things. And then instead of trying to pick them out of, oh, what this project is, oh, it's this dance, so I'm going to fund this because we need a dance piece. Or, oh, this is theater, so I'm going to fund this because we need theater. Instead of doing this, if we focus on what these pieces are about, what they're saying, the quality, and what impact they're going to have, instead of focusing on the medium that is used to make the work. I think maybe that could be a criteria that would be more maybe inclusive, because then we're not trying to define what things are, but we're just trying to focus on the message that a production or a piece of work can have, you know?
So who makes those decisions when you say they focus on?
Well, I think people that have the power to give money away, which is clearly not us. I think, I don't know. Yeah.
If those proposals, like, so say I'm a dance practitioner and I am on the Arts Council and I'm reading the outline of a film and I'm reading the outline of a dance piece.
Yeah.
I'm automatically going to have some bias towards funding the dance piece. Do you know?
Yeah, well, that's not, yeah. Maybe shouldn't be like that, as in, like, we should be a little more, I don't know, super partes, as in, like, more, you know, not really looking at our, not interest, but, like, you know, trying to just.
It's not that I wouldn't have an interest in this, but my expertise wouldn't be in this, so I wouldn't necessarily know how to understand what this person is trying to do or trying to say in that piece.
Yeah, but that's why I think on probably, I'm not sure, but I think on the panels of funding organization, there are lots of different type of people, so different type of backgrounds, and that allows people to have a different type of understanding of whatever work comes their way. So obviously, if a panel is made only of academic people, obviously all the work that is coming, they're gonna fund probably everything that is text-based or everything that has something to do with literature. So obviously, if there is not a variety on the panels that decide what work is being funded, if that's lacking, then
That's
like nothing is gonna go through, you know?
Yeah.
So
yeah, so it's an arts council representation that probably
yeah,
change. Yeah.
maybe that's
But also understanding the criteria that they will apply to judge the work, because I know that here is on something that you cannot accept working without funding. I know that it's one scenario, you know, but there are some models that in Buenos Aires, for instance, in Argentina, the funding is given to the artist after the commission see the play.
Oh wow.
So you must to invest your savings also, and so then they have a commission that they go like play by play, and they decide which one is better, and then they refund the whole amount of money of the production, for instance.
Wow.
But I understand that if you don't have that savings, you must just doing theater or dance with without lights, for instance, or without costumes or something like that, you know. So it's quite
Well, in a way, Macarena, what you're saying also makes me think about the idea of sustainability. You know, if I am a company and I have been funded in the past, I have a follow, I have an audience, my name is recognized, I have the ability of making revenue streams through my marketing, selling t-shirts and masks and hats and whatever else that needs to go with it, if it is part of, you know, an industry, as we called it. But it doesn't seem this way, because the industry as it is, it feels like keeps pampering and celebrating and helping and aiding companies that are already well placed and have their modus operandi that is not sustainable in a way, because it still relies heavily on funding. And then new companies or new artists and new independent groups that want to create, that they have nothing left, if not even the crumbs of what they can make. But at the same time, I have to say that my experience of the Irish art, it's always been liminal in between the worlds of plays that were funded and the plays that weren't. And there is a whole world that is just not spoken about, really. It's not written about, it's not academically recognized, but these squads that Katie has been mentioning, they have been there for the past years or so, and they keep getting closed, people keep getting moved, but art keep being made in there is an underground, there is so underground, I feel. It's more like a I don't know, I like calling it underbelly that is there, hidden with the belly button fluff, and all of us artists existing in there. And I don't feel, to be honest, I don't feel part of that as much as I don't feel part as the other. I feel like maybe there is a potential for all of this. Like, I'm not saying that the underbelly has already a brilliant culture of collaboration and perfection there at all, just like the other. So maybe the cultural change needs to happen across the board, you know, for everybody. I don't know if you have any experiences with that or thoughts, because, yeah, please.
I'm just gonna turn a light on.
No, finish. I'm sorry. I cut you.
I was just gonna blabber a bit more because I thought nobody had nothing to say about this, but if you do, please go.
For what Claudia was saying, I think again, we all need Katie also said we all need funding in order to work. So what I think maybe the people in power that has the money and is distributing it has to put it into two groups. Two groups is bigger corporations, and then us artists in the local communities, and then put the funding 50-50 in the sense of, so that the money, we know that, okay, this is the amount that is coming, so that we don't, it's not like crumbs that we are getting, you know, and like there's a hierarchy. Because, for example, there's no way my project will get a bigger money or funding if I'm going with, let's say, somebody, a writer or a director from the Irish National Theatre. You know, they're definitely going to pick him because they see that, or more experience, big corporations coming from this, coming from that. But if they put it into two categories where, okay, this corporation, so if big theater, you are also fighting for the same amount of money with another big theater. And then for our group that we are starting, we want to make it there. We also have our own money that is not being kind of like, you know, that we know that this is our money. This is where that we have to also get the money from. But the idea of like, I think sometimes I also find it that Katie is right. You do have people that are giving the funding that have a connection with certain style of art, you know. And you asked the question, how do we change that? How come? And Macarena, you said that some artists I think in Argentina went out and then they were protesting outside in Irish. We couldn't. For me, I see it more in a way of how artistic or is the country. You know, if a country is very kind of artistic, is an artistic country and full of that, you do have that people that will come in. For example, in France, let me use even Spain, for example, when the arts group felt like they were not being funded, they all went out and then had the mic, the speakers, everything outside also. And they were even playing drums and everything outside. But when it comes to Ireland, why is it that you ask in Ireland could it be, or maybe because of the weather? I won't say because of the weather. I would say it's more the lack of interest in arts in the country. We do talk much about art, and we have artists that really wants to spread the arts, but the young generations that are coming in, not a lot of people. For example, you go to school and the only like physical education that we do is like either football or maybe they will just do one play. There's no like a performing arts kind of like classes that when a young person is coming, they will feel more interested. Like, okay, I'm going into the arts. I'm going to do this more. I'm going to do this more. So young people are coming in knowing nothing about art, you know, and maybe the arts that they call art in school is like painting. You know, so we need to, for me, I think in order to make that change, we need to invest. The government needs to invest more in the arts, in the education system where the young people are coming from. They feel to activate their creativity, their creative mindset. And then so when they come in and they see that, oh my God, we don't have nothing, then these young people are going to be empowered along with the ones that are trying to push it out there that, okay, let's go for it. But because the government are not doing much for the arts community in the education system, it's only us or the ones that are fully into it are trying. And most of the time we're in the minority group. And if we talk about democracy is not always like, oh, the people, the power of the people. Democracy is majority wins. So when the majority wins, we the minority, we are always going to be on and we might not be able to change that when it comes to Ireland. Ireland, we love the arts, but I'm thinking that we are not investing much into that. And that is our problem. Maybe Spain and France and maybe Argentina, they have invested in it in the past. And that is why it has much creative people that can go outside and maybe do. I don't know, but I think Ireland, we need the government have not invested more into the arts, and that is our problem. And because we are not getting that much of people.
I think, Kevin, thank you very much. That was amazing. And when you start, you quiet. When you start, you got you got it all figured out. So, Kelvin, for president, I would totally vote for you. Government. But in the meantime, I've been waiting for you to become president. Before we can get to vote for you and everything, I guess that is what the government and the fundings and the institutions can do and would do and should do. And we hope that they can listen to us and get our advice and everything. But then there's also a tyrant called time that is calling us to come to an end. And I wish this never ends, or maybe we can put it to the Mother Tongues Festival to have us again next year and see what happens 1 year after to the 5 of us, maybe open it to more people and see what happened there. But before I let you all go, thank you very much. I have notes and notes of important words, important notions, important idea And I think a lot, really, a lot can come out from this. I hope, although it's just an exercise in conversation, I think I am very inspired, and I want to thank you all for this. And before we leave, maybe just a little theatrical thing. We're putting our hands together and make them do noise, a loud noise, and keep them nice and warm. Nice and warm. Yeah, I want to hear that. Yes. And then when we finish that, we can push each other calmly with our hands. Support, collaborate.